There are Black girls with mixed ancestry who don't know they're Black, and that's a social and political choice. One I did not expect to see in Ben Stiller's Severance. So the actor, Tremel Tillman, who plays Mr. Milchick, had one serious question to ask when he was formulating how he was going to approach his character. And he said, does Mr. Milchick know he is Black? In this fictional dark corporate setting, there's a real question that is blatantly laid out. It's, who are you? While season 2 felt more surreal in some ways than others, it is always grounded by the very real connection we have to the idea that in a society, we are constantly answering that question about who we are and forging our own identities, often around our station in life, our class, the work we do, our profession. We know that who we are, or more accurately, who we are defined to be in a social hierarchy, determines what kind of choices we have, what kind of quality of life we lead, what agency we have. If you perceive that something about you could be attached to a social narrative that has low value in society or endangers your ability to stay in a powerful community, you're going to be highly motivated to distance yourself from that. At Lumen, there is an entire culture of dress, speech, mannerisms that serve the grand mission. It creates cohesion towards a common goal. Deviating from that culture handed down by Keir and his family has a mental, professional, and social cost. Key point, that culture by Keir is not presented as subjective. It's presented as objective, which makes challenging it very difficult. Lumen is diverse in bodies, but it's not diverse in how those bodies behave. We could look at any real life institution and it could look like the United Nations, but if it only rewards certain kinds of behavior, it doesn't mean it's necessarily inclusive. That's why people can look at a place and go, how could this place be racist, sexist, classist, ableist, whatever? Look at who all is here. Culture is what you reward and what you punish. The truth about any power dynamic can be revealed in what people have to deny of themselves in order to maintain safety in that system. Humans tend to assume that power and success validate the story someone tells about themselves. Lumen consolidates its power through the Egan family, the Keir mythology, and the board by doing just that. While Severance as a procedure is presented as an adult decision for adults to have a work-life balance, what it is really creating are these people who are functionally mentally like children. The innies have this childlike relationship to power where the person who's in charge, the father figure, is just right. Usually it's only after children grow up and leave and they have other sources of reference that they're like, oh, I was in an abusive or controlling environment. So we have the spokesperson for the board, Natalie Caitlin. She's played by Sydney Cole-Alexander. And in her interactions with Mr. Milchick, that's where we see these two different choices in terms of identity and office politics. Important note, both the actors and the showrunners of the show confirmed that the corporation understands both Natalie and Mr. Milchick to be Black people. Natalie's job is to be a mouthpiece for the board. Her body is literally a conduit for the wishes that come from on high and their messages. Sydney Cole-Alexander only betrays Natalie's sense of self through these minute tremors through that never-ending smile. Natalie is all in for the company and she plays her part to a T. Does she work on the severed floor? Yes. Is she severed? No. Does she completely on her own sever her own individuality and personhood to do this job? Yes. This is a choice she makes repeatedly because she covets and loves the closeness she has to the board. Because guess what? The board has more power, including more power than anyone in this company who might be kin to her or might understand her experience. When she presents Mr. Milchick with those canon photos of Keir, which have clearly been altered so it's Keir in blackface, she is silently pleading with him to just accept them and not make a fuss. Images and paintings are weapons at Lumen. Just like any myth that's racist or any classist origin stories, they shift and they morph to preserve the board's power. Whatever uprising happens, whatever natural disasters, whatever thing that goes out of their control occurs, they just wrap it all into their story and it ends up all serving Lumen's manifest destiny. Mr. Milchick is disgusted by this attempt to pander to him as a Black man. The gift is offensive and he knows Sydney has received one exactly like it. He looks over at her and is trying to telegraph in a way if she sees this and if she felt the same way. Sydney chooses not to connect over this pain, and she does this multiple times throughout the season. Instead, she is encouraging him to play the game she's playing. She doesn't give him anything. That pause that Mr. Milchick has, the desire to save something in him that is not connecting with this, she's already killed in herself. Tremel Tillman said if Mr. Milchick didn't know he was a Black man, it would have changed a lot of the power dynamics in how the scene is played. Mr. Milchick is a loyal company man, but yet at the same time, He believes that he is good at what he does because of who he is, not in spite of it. He maintains his individuality in terms of not putting up the photos because he finds them offensive, so he secretly hides them. He comes out in all his glory to dance with a marching band. He continues to say his sophisticated vocabulary because that's who he is. If he didn't know he was Black, he wouldn't have paused when he was given those photos. He wouldn't have tried to telegraph his distaste to his fellow Black coworker. There are cases where Black people with mixed ancestry have a choice to decide which aspect of themselves or their looks is more socially profitable and to lean hard into that. It's part of why there is a historical animosity towards people like this, because when given an opportunity to use their proximity to whiteness to embrace more power and abandon other people, they have taken it. These people think that any reference or awareness or acknowledgement of their connection to Blackness in any way is dangerous and bad for them, and they will make a fuss if you try. When you have people compete for a small amount of resources and you are trying to say that one group of people, in this situation, white people, European features, are the things that will be rewarded and anything else will be punished, you end up having a bunch of people, not just white people, participating in an anti-Black culture. That could look like people in the 19th and 20th century passing and leaving other people behind and not wanting to speak to them. It could look like people who are house Negroes lording their status over other people. It could look like pandering and parroting anti-Black narratives today on podcasts to gain the approval of good people, classy people. Now you might ask, how can you say that something's anti-Black if there's a million ways to be Black, right? Black people aren't a monolith. Natalie isn't seen with thinned out, relaxed hair or openly hating Mr. Milchick. Is wearing lily dresses and having silk pressed hair or even hair that has been thinned by relaxer anti-Black? No, it's not. I've done all of them. Social groups are dynamic. They have diverse expressions. But there are social groups that have higher levels of perceived innocence and complexity than others. There are social groups that are allowed to set the tone for culture and say something is classy and something is ghetto. That social group can create stereotypes around common generalized identity markers of another social group. Members in that lower ranked social group can prove their goodness, their loyalty, and their right to belong by openly shunning something from their own group or from that vast diverse expression, or by openly adopting another social group's ideas of what's right. This has looked like making faces at people because they think they're too loud. It's insisting that everybody needs to show up the right way. It's calling something ghetto until it's seen on Hailey Bieber. It's having zero Black friends and also saying that your preference is just not Black people. People will cultivate this kind of lifestyle and then call it socially neutral. It's not. It's the result of social choices that you make over and over again, that you decide on somebody's bias if they're good or bad, if they're better or worse. It's believing that there's only one right, classy way to be, and magically it always happens to emulate a certain group or some generalization of a wealthy white person. You have people following rules that rich people don't even follow themselves, but it's just the aesthetic of whatever's supposed to be classy. When we say someone doesn't know they're Black, we're talking about people who have literally severed themselves from the social reality of their Blackness. They refuse to connect their experiences or how they are treated to a wider collective history. This is a choice to see everything about your life as you as an individual and not the fact that you were living in a society that was up till a couple decades ago a legalized racial state. Racism doesn't happen to them because they're good people. They don't have problems with racism because they just don't talk about it. To a point, they could be right if they're upper class, right? Because racism is not about some true scientific fact. Racism is a social technology that has historically been used to create a class system. Its function is to protect capital in the upper classes. And once you make it, its function has worked. Now, some of you are Lily because that's what you were raised in and that's what you like. That's totally fine. But if you're open-minded, you won't say this is the only way to dress. You're not going to be offended when somebody calls you Black. You're not actively screeching that you're half white or caramel or whatever made-up term people have to distance themselves from Blackness. And you're certainly not competing to be Negro of the Month at your country club. And best of all, other people's expressions of Blackness are not a threat to you. You do not see it as something that needs to be fixed or silenced. Natalie has decided that the cost of fitting in, the cost of assimilating, is worth putting up with the anti-Blackness that she experiences. She will just pretend it's not real. Milchick, because he knows who he is, increasingly chafes against the leadership's treatment of him. He counts the offenses that are made out of him. You see him moving with his marching band out of a self-assurance and an acceptance of himself internally. He moves not out of hope of acceptance, but out of conviction that he belongs at Lumen. Ultimately, the answer to who are you is not something you answer once. You have to live out the answer through that question, choice after choice after choice. And you do that over a lifetime. Are there immutable characteristics about all of us? Yes. But what you choose to betray, center, demonize, at the end of the day, that's up to you.